Hello, friends and neighbors. Happy Sunday. I hope that wherever you are and whatever you're doing today, you're able to get some rest and some renewal, reflect on the past week, and prepare for the new one that is ahead for us here. This morning, I'd like to read a poem from John Donne. So, this will be our first poet that we've repeated. And the reason I've selected John Donne today is that, on a personal note, I want to read more of the metaphysical poets. I only sort of studied them in that unit on my own as I was preparing one time to teach an AP literature course. And I had to sort of have a very truncated, self-driven education of the metaphysical poets. And I didn't have a whole lot of time to spend with some of the greatest hits that a lot of the anthologies had suggested for each. So that's why I'm returning to John Donne. And John Donne also was a cleric. And on Sundays, I like to just take a moment with poems that have a religious nature to them or have a metaphysical concept to them or focus on questions of the transcendental or the ethereal, things beyond some of the more material aspects of some of the poems that we've had recently. So the poem that I'll read today is called Air and Angels by John Donne. And I believe this poem was from 1633. It is a 28-line poem in 2 stanzas. And as it progresses, the conceit that's established early on that you might recognize as I read it is complicated, and it's sort of put through even a structural ringer within the poem so that at times the syntax is going to feel very convoluted and might be difficult to make sense of. But we will do our best after I finish reading it to pull some of the kind of surface level, more obvious meanings out of the poem. So, without further ado, here is Air and Angels by John Donne. Twice or thrice had I loved thee before I knew thy face or name. So in a voice, so in a shapeless flame, angels affect us oft, and worshipped be. Still when, to where thou wert I came, some lovely glorious nothing I did see. But since my soul, whose child love is, takes limbs of flesh, and else could nothing do, more subtle than the parent is love must not be, but take a body too. And therefore, what thou wert, and who, I bid love ask. And now that it assume thy body, I allow, and fix itself in thy lip, eye, and brow. Whilst thus to ballast love, I thought, and so more steadily to have gone with wares which would sink admiration, I saw I had love's penance o'erfraught. Every thy hair for love to work upon is much too much, some fitter to be sought. For, nor in nothing, nor in things extreme, and scattering bright, can love inhere. Then, as an angel, face and wings of air, not purer as it, yet pure, doth wear. So thy love may be my love's sphere, just such disparity as is twixt air and angel's purity, twixt women's love and men's love will ever be. Okay. This is a beautiful and challenging poem, and reading it through the 2025 lens, I can't help but notice there's an implication on the part of the speaker that perhaps out of frustration, or perhaps this was an idea that was prevalent and unchallenged within poetry at the time, simply because so many more men had the opportunities to write and get published. But I'm noticing that there's an idea or a tone, a kind of bias and leaning in here, suggesting that man's love is stronger than women's, and that's one that I think we see in the end, that just such a disparity as is twixt air and angel's purity, twixt women's love and men's will ever be. I don't know enough about the metaphysical poets or about the time to suggest if that was a common theme or if this is merely the expression of some frustration on the part of Donne's speaker. But it was something that caught my attention as I was reading through the poem. I do find the opening of it rather lovely and innocent, though. Twice or thrice had I loved thee before I knew thy face or name. And I think that those two lines are filled with such vulnerability and fragility and longing. And it's something that I think, especially younger people, can relate to, of feeling so stricken by someone and yet so distanced from them or so unable to approach or interact with them. And it feels like your emotional life, the love of your emotional life, is sort of rising and falling upon their glances or their acknowledgement. And so what the speaker does right away then in line 3 is introduce the conceit of the poem, which is this desire on behalf of the speaker for love to take a form. And I think we can understand form in the Platonic sense, but also, again, in the metaphysical sense, that it's something that exists in a kind of perfect unity somewhere that is not able to be reached by humans. And so it has to be transferred down, or there has to be some sort of medium or some sort of channel. And in this case, the speaker is wishing that an angel can take form, the form of love. But the angels also need something with which to materialize, namely the air that's in this poem. And the speaker then around line 6 talks about going again to see the beloved. And there's a really nice oxymoron in the middle of this line. Some lovely, glorious nothing I did see. And that glorious nothing, I think, is a really lovely turn of phrase. It has an inherent contradiction in it, but it's also kind of grasping at this ineffable or untangible reality, this real feeling and longing for this love. Now, these two stanzas that are in the poem are both 14 lines, as I mentioned, and they have a unique to me rhyme scheme. A, B, B, A, B, A, C, D, C, D, D, E, E, E. And with that kind of complex structure that's maintained throughout, I think it prevents the poem from having kind of a predictable sing-song end rhyme that you might often hear. And the last 3 lines of each stanza kind of grow in length as they go. The 12th line of each stanza being the shortest, 13th a bit longer, 14th a bit longer. To be honest, I'm not really sure what to do with that, but it was an observation that I had. So after the speaker asks for love to come down, manifest through an angel, and then take up kind of residence within features of the woman's face, in the second stanza, the speaker seems to be losing track of that, right? While thus to ballast love, I thought more steadily to have gone. So now they begin thinking of love as this ship on the sea that's imbalanced and that's wavering, almost tipping over and almost ready to sink. And it's in that the speaker kind of resolves that there's, tragically or sadly for them, not going to be this connection or this communion that they're wishing for. They say there that then as an angel, face and wings of air, not pure is it, yet pure doth wear, so that love may be my love's sphere. So the conceit seems to break down there. And I think the speaker is realizing that you're not going to be this, especially once I meet you and get closer to you, you're not going to be this ideal form of love for me. And so I'm going to have to reconceptualize of you as not being a form, but of being a particular. And again, ending with that strange sort of acknowledgement there that, pure as air, but not as pure as air, right? And it sounds like there's some maturing on behalf of the speaker, going from someone who twice or thrice I loved thee before I knew your name, to having some more kind of grounded or realistic expectations towards the end, even if, as we said at the beginning, it seems to be a way of saying, well, as a man, I love strongly and more purely than you can. And for that reason, not only has the conceit of my poem fallen apart, but my expectations of what I could get out of a relationship with you have fallen apart. Um, and so there's some disjunction and some tension there that I think leaves the poem in a kind of unsettling place. But those are just some general surface observations I had. I'd be curious if anybody read it very differently or if I'm missing something essential. Otherwise, again, I wish you a very restful and restorative Sunday, and peace be with all of you and your loved ones. Thanks for joining us.